We're on. All right. Bonsoir, Ani, and welcome to this special council meeting. I'd like to call it to order, and I need a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda. Moved by Randy, seconded by Renee. All those in favor? Thank you. Any disclosures of pecuniary interests? Seeing none. So tonight, this evening, there's a public hearing scheduled for one zoning amendment bylaw. The Planning Act requires that a public hearing be held before council decides whether or not to pass a zoning bylaw amendment. The public hearing serves two purposes. First, to present to council and to the public the details and background to a proposed rezoning. And second, to receive comments from the public and or agencies before a council decision is made. Monsieur Dumont will provide a summary of the application. From there, the applicant will be requested to make a presentation via live broadcast, followed by questions from the public via live broadcast or in person, either in favor or against the proposal. Council will then have the opportunity to question the applicant, the director of planning, or anyone giving presentations. The zoning bylaw amendment will then be considered by council later this evening. Monsieur Dumont, would you please advise how public notice was provided?
Notice of public hearing was posted in the municipal office and was sent by mail to the assessed owners within 120
We lost
meters.
the sound. You want to try that again, Matt?
Yeah, I'll start over. Can you, testing, can everyone hear me loud and clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Notices of public hearing was posted in the municipal office and was sent by mail to the assessed owners within 120 meters of the property subject for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment this evening, and to those persons and agencies likely to have an interest in the application. The notices were sent on October 12th, 2022, being over 20 days prior to this evening's meeting. Included with the notice was an explanation of the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and a key map showing the location of the subject property.
Thank you. I declare this portion of the hearing to be a public hearing to deal with application number ZBA 22-16 FR H&R Chartrand Lumber Ltd. Monsieur Dumont, will you please summarize the purpose and effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and provide any additional information and correspondence relevant to this application?
The subject lands this evening are located in the municipality of French River and are surrounded by a variety of land uses that include, but are not limited to, residential, commercial, institutional, industrial, and rural. A residential home abuts to the west, and a residential rural home abuts to the east. H&R Chartrand Lumber is located on the opposite side of Highway 64 on the north side. The Sudbury East Planning Board has received an application from H&R Chartrand Lumber Ltd. The application proposes to rezone a portion of the lands from the current rural zone to general industrial zone with the permission of a 50.49 meters of frontage on Highway 64. Approximately 3.68 hectares of land is to be rezoned to that general industrial zone, which is located, as I noted earlier, on the north side of Highway 64. And the remainder, or the balance of the lands, which is 25.7 hectares of land, will remain as rural zone and will have frontage on Prevost Road. So it's a very large property which has frontage on Highway 64 and Prevost Road. So the proposal will permit the expansion of their existing operations, which is currently the H&R Chartrand Lumber Ltd, along with the southerly side of, or the northerly side of Highway 64. And the proposed location would be accessory to the existing operations that currently are on the south side of Highway 64 and be used for storage and warehousing purposes or uses. So with respect to the official plan, the official plan does touch on rural, industrial, and commercial uses, and goes on to say that they may be permitted without an amendment. Well, all that means is that they wouldn't have to go through an official plan amendment process, as long as the following criteria, which is listed below, I'll kind of touch on each criteria, is satisfied through that process. So one of the requirements to the OP is saying, hey, the proposed use shall meet the requirements and the separation distances set out by the Ministry of Environment, specifically the D series guidelines. So what I did was I did a little quick calculation that was provided to our office. It takes into account the existing proposed office warehouse location and its existing or its proposed setbacks, and those proposed setbacks are in relation to the lot lines, also taking consideration to the residential homes that I noted in my earlier explanation. So I factored in all those setbacks when I kind of considered this quick calculation, and I'm doing this quick calculation based on the D series guidelines. So what is noted in my report, or my justification in my report, is that the proposed location of the building is approximately 71 meters or 232 feet from the existing residential home, which is 4563 Highway 64. That's one setback I calculated approximately. And the other setback that I calculated approximately was address 4577 Highway 64, which was approximately to their dwelling unit or home was 121 meters, or in other words, 396.88 feet. So I calculated the existing distances between the two homes, 232 feet for one dwelling, and the other dwelling almost 400 feet when looking at that. So when I looked at the D6 guidelines, I looked at the class 1 industrial facility of the 70-meter setback. So they have their own setbacks and their own regulations. So a business for small scale self-contained plant or building which produces or stores product which is contained in a package and has low probability of emissions. Outputs are infrequent and could be point of source of emissions for any of the following: noise, odor, dust, vibration. They are daytime operations only. So that's very key, daytime operations. So it's not running 24/7. Daytime operations is classified under this class 1 industrial facility setback 70 meters with infrequent movement of products or heavy trucks and no outside storage. And I'll kind of touch on the movement of heavy trucks on MTO comments too. So with that said, the proposed location exceeds the 70-meter setback from the residential homes. Most importantly, the proposed use does not fall within the category of a class 2 or class 3 industrial facility. Therefore, it would be applicable based on the MOE D6 compatibility between industrial facilities, in my opinion, based on those calculations. One of the other tests to this policy framework is B, which speaks to any agricultural related uses shall meet the requirements of the minimum distance separation formula. So in this case, this proposal, this test is not applicable. Why is that? Because there are no farming operations in the specific area. Again, that goes back to what I kind of touched on, the surrounding uses being a variety of uses, which are commercial, residential, institutional. You didn't really hear primarily it's all farming, because that's not the case in this particular pocket or this area. So for that reason, my justification that the agricultural section is not applicable, that the proposed use shall not create or add negative impact on the environment. Again, section C kind of touches on that class 1 industrial facility by MOE that I touched on section A through my justification. So I've noted that already. And Basically, the proponent shall then demonstrate how the traffic, so traffic is another consideration here for this proposal, how traffic generated from the proposed use will not impact the existing roads and not impact the neighboring properties. So I did facilitate further discussions with the MTO on this proposal. They did receive the proposal. So the subject lands are again on highway or provincial highway 64. And through the pre-consultation with MTO, MTO stated that they do not request a traffic impact study or brief impact study. All that is basically they base that on the operation to see how much impact vehicular movement would be to the site and the neighboring properties, and how it would impact their highway. So they felt as though the proposal is not significant enough to request such a study, so it wasn't warranted. With that said, the applicant would apply for your traditional MTO commercial entrance permit like anybody else that has a business off a provincial highway. That's a staple, and to upgrade the existing entrance to MTO's commercial entrance standard. So those are the two conditions as part of this kind of approval from their perspective. Now, with respect to zoning, I kind of touched on the purpose of this application this evening. The purpose are two uses. The first one being a warehouse, and a warehouse is a building or part thereof that may include accessory buildings used for storage and distribution of goods, merchandise, substances, articles, and may include facilities of wholesaling or for accessory retail sales of goods, merchandise, substances, or otherwise stored within the building. But shall not include a transportation depot. So that's the intent of a warehouse, which they're proposing on this site. And secondly, they're also proposing within the facility a business or like a professional office. A professional office is a building or part thereof in which any business is carried out on or any profession is practiced, but does not include a medical clinic or medical office. So those are the two uses that are being proposed within this site. I also did just a breakdown of the rural zone because, as I noted earlier, the subject property is going to have split zoning. So half, or I'd say like 90% will still remain rural. So it still has to adhere to the rural requirements, which means minimum 5 hectares of area, minimum frontage of 100 meters. And so what's being proposed this evening on the rural side of things is going to still be over 25 hectares and 185 meters of road frontage. So that will continue to conform from a zoning perspective. Now, with respect to the, that requires minimum 2 hectares and 60 meters of frontage. So the proposed zoning this evening will recognize through the bylaw a reduced frontage, and that reduced frontage is existing, it's illegal. It's presently 50.49 meters on Highway 64. So the bylaw will recognize that 50.49 where 60 meters is required for frontage. In terms of lot area, the proposed rezoning area itself exceeds the 2 hectares. It's approximately 3.68 hectares. Now, when I circulated for comments, I circulated to the Ministry of Transportation, which I've already chatted or discussed with council this evening on those two conditions. No traffic impact study was required. I circulated to the municipality of French River. They had no comments or concerns in relation to this application this evening. In terms of public consultation, I did receive 2 letters of concern. And I'm just going to grab the 2 letters, which I've noted in my report. So one of the letters had to deal with several concerns of the proposal. That being, their concern of a 24-hour shift, loud machines being running throughout the day and night. That was one of the concerns there. The other concern was with respect to traffic. I'd be open to further discussions. Again, from a municipal perspective, the traffic is dealt with MTO for this situation, which has already been addressed in their comments and supportability for this. Some other concerns were the water and the sewage being used for this area, how that would be, and noise. So those were some of the valid concerns with the proposal that I received from one of the neighboring properties. I also did receive another letter from another neighboring property. It really didn't speak to like planning issues, it's more personal issues. So I'm not going to elaborate any more than that, as I feel as though these issues, if they're going to be issues, which I kind of noted on the other letter, all deal with planning related items with respect to this. So personal doesn't deal with this stuff. So I won't note what was said in those emails for that reason and justification behind that. Now, with that said, those were the two letters that I did receive with concerns. And I also did have a conversation over the phone with one of the individuals that voiced their concerns in one of those letters to provide further information for peace of mind and ease of mind as to what was taking place for this. And I believe the consultants are also part of this public hearing this evening, so they could provide maybe a little bit more information on the servicing component, the water and the sewer concern, and traffic's already been addressed, and maybe the hours of operation, just to provide a little bit more context to that. Now, with that said, given the thorough report and taking in consideration everybody's views on this application this evening, I've provided a recommendation to support the zoning bylaw amendment, as I noted with my explanation for the official plan, as well as zoning bylaw, and I deem the proposal to be appropriate for those reasons. And I'd be open to any further discussion or questions from either council or the public or the consultant on this matter.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation? I see Vanessa's here. And Amy, I think I saw you here.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Amy's there in person as well.
Oh yeah, there she is. Yes, I see you. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, the application before you is relatively straightforward in that it's to rezone the southerly portion of the property to general industrial in order to permit for the lumberyard and accessory uses for outdoor storage and warehousing. The intent of the application is obviously to allow for the expansion of Chartrand Lumber, which, as I'm sure you're all aware, is on the southerly portion of the highway, and the remainder of the lands are proposed to be rezoned rural for this time. In terms of planning policy, I certainly concur with Mr. Dumont's report in that the application is consistent with the BPS and the OP's rural policy areas, as it supports employment, economic development, and the proposed use.
Vanessa, we're having trouble hearing you. I think perhaps too close to the mic.
Oh, sorry. I usually have to bring it closer.
Yeah.
Can you still hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. The proposed use is obviously in keeping with character of the area. MTO had no concerns. And we are meeting MOE's requirements for distance separation to sensitive uses such as residential. As for the comments received, I certainly understand the public's concerns. We are providing necessary MOE separation. I'm sure Amy can speak to us. I believe it's not the intent for this to be a 24-hour operation by any means. Maybe Mr. Dumont can specifically give me more details regarding the water and sewer concerns, because I certainly, I don't necessarily know how to respond to that. But other than that,
We're losing you, Vanessa, from one extreme to another, right?
How about this?
Oh, yeah, that's okay.
Other than that, I just want to thank you all for your time tonight, and I certainly welcome any questions.
Thank you. Amy, did you have anything you wanted to add? No? Then are there any questions or comments from members of the public? And if there are, you're required to go to the microphone, just press the button until the red light goes on, state your name and your address and make your comment, and then we'll move on. Any comments? Go ahead, sir. And the comments have to deal directly with the bylaw, the amendment.
Sure,
Okay.
you let me know if I'm correct or incorrect. So Luke LaFortune, 101 Notre Dame Street East. I just want clarification about noise, because I've heard from more than one person that it's not just for storage. There's gonna be a planer in there, inside, outside. They're building a planer. When I bought the property, there was one shift across the street. I bought across from a mill. I knew that. Went 2 shifts right away. That's understandable. They're busy, good for them. I did not buy in front, like to have something behind me as well. So now I have noise in front and I may have noise in the back. I just want to have clarification. Is it really just a storage shed for real, or is everybody saying it's going to be a planer? And is it a year, 2 years, 3 years? Are we going to be open about it, or?
Matt, did you have any comments?
Bear with me for a second. I'm just gonna bring out the site plan again that our office received. So from my perspective, in the ongoing discussions with the agent who's present this evening, again, Vanessa from Tulloch Engineering, with our pre-consultation, there's a process that's in place. So leading up to this event, to this public hearing, behind the scenes, there's a lot of internal discussions with myself and the agent that's representing the owner of the property. And so based on those internal discussions and the information that's been provided to our office and what I've presented to council, as well as the public this evening, is that the intent is for 2 things, 2 uses: 1, the warehouse, and 2, the office. And so from a zoning perspective, the bylaw has definitions that are set in place, and those definitions need to be met. So that's all I can speak to in terms of information. Now, there's a lot of hearsay, this, that, and what's been done. So at the end of the day, the information I could give to you is warehouse and business office, as per the definition, as I noted earlier in my presentation, is what are the permitted uses under that new zoning. That's what I can speak to, and for the time being.
Thank you. Any other further questions from the public? Yeah, I know council comes after the public. Okay. Seeing none, then now I'll move to council, and I have Rick and Randy.
Okay, so I just want a clarification here. So it's been a bit hard to understand because the voices are very low, but so the question that was asked is, will there be noise? Will there be, is it be a storage or what? So my question is, the definition that is now, would it allow for such type of business in the future, or is it just for storage and whatever else, or office, as you said? So let's say that's the case now. What we're doing today, does that mean that it opens it up for further other types of businesses, like planning activities in the future?
Matt?
Yes, through you, Chair. So the good question. So this request this evening, can everyone hear me clearly? Sorry. Okay.
So you're okay.
Okay, thank you. So the request this evening is it's site specific, meaning that the current zone right now is rural. So if we were not here this evening, as a right of use, as any owner or taxpayer, ratepayer would have a right of use using the current rural zone, which could be a contractor's establishment. There's a wide range of uses have a right of use. So if I could explain it the best way possible to make this easy, is saying the proposal this evening, as we understand, doesn't work with the current zone or those rights of uses. And as a result of that, they want to be specific. They're coming to me and saying, we know what we want. We want a warehouse and we want a business and office. That's what we want. So that's this zoning or this bylaw this evening is specific to those 2 uses. So that's the restrictiveness or the limitedness in saying We know what we want. That's what you're only permitted. And so from a land use perspective, or from my perspective, it's clear. It's warehouse, business, or professional office. Now, the next question to this, which I can't speak to, is at the building permit stage. The building permit stage would be the chief building official. So the chief building official, which would be responsible for enforcing the bylaw or enforcing the zones and or enforcing these definitions. So it would be the responsibility of the chief building official to assure when it does come time to receive a building permit for the use, that the proposed use reflects and conforms to what I am recommending for approval this evening. That's all I can do from my end with respect to the proposal this evening in terms of process and having control over to a certain extent from my side.
Have Randy? Oh, Rick.
It's a long answer, but I still don't get the answer. If it's either a yes or a no, that there could be a business down the road. Are we opening it up? So just basically yes or no. If we're opening it up for other types of activities as we're doing today. For what we're doing tonight.
Matt?
Through you, Chair, I will redirect the question or because Vanessa can elaborate because she's having those internal discussions with the owner, which I have not been through. So she can definitely assist in answering that question.
Right. I guess, Matt, Rick is wondering, he just wants a yes or no. Like right now before us, what is for decision tonight is a change in the zoning amendment so that it can accommodate an office and a warehouse. Is that it before us tonight? If they wish to build another full thing, whatever that they're going to build, would that would be restricted, correct? Because of what the site plan is, right?
That's correct. Yes.
That's correct.
Simple
So the
yeah.
answer is, it's no. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And Randy, did you have something? Go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. A couple of quick questions. I'm looking for clarification as well too then. So if they set up a storage facility or warehouses, which is what it's supposed to be, and 6 months down the road, they start a planing operation in that building, which was not the intended purpose, what is the repercussion? Can we pull them out of there for that purpose then? The second question I have is, will there be lumber storage on the yard as well as in this facility in the building? And if so, what is the fire separation to the houses that are adjoining on the adjoining properties for outdoor lumber storage, and how do we enforce and meet that? And then the second problem or last question I have is about the heavy equipment that's going to be crossing the highway, obviously carrying large bundles of lumber, I'm assuming. You know, I see a traffic amendment to a lower speed and a more signage for caution, because that's an extreme risk I see crossing the highway with those goods. So those would be my three questions.
With regards to the traffic, MTO's already addressed that. So that they felt that based on the usage of the building, that it didn't require a traffic study like they normally would have. Would there be more traffic? Probably, but MTO, who governs the highway, is the one that makes that decision. I forgot your other two questions.
So just going back to that, although I understand there's no need for traffic study, I'm trying to determine the type of traffic before I sign off on this on my behalf, saying that I have no problem with this proposal. What kind of traffic will be crossing that highway, and what kind of product will be traversing that highway, so that I know for myself when I approve it, although the ministry said they don't care. I want to know.
Vanessa? Oh, Matt, sorry. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. I
It's
know
so hard
Vanessa.
to see you guys on the screen. That's why. Go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I apologize for any of the misconfusion tonight. The intent is for this property to be zoned to be accessory to the existing operations. So I would suspect that planing could be something that could occur. We are applying for a general industrial use. In our pre-con, we did say that the intent is primarily for outdoor storage, putting in a warehouse, but it is accessory to a lumber yard. So I want to make that kind of clear of our intent here. I'm sure Amy can speak to more of hours of operation, but we are applying for a general industrial zone with the intent to be accessory for a lumber yard. So.
Thank you. That answers one of my three questions. So then, Matt, fire separation on outdoor storage to those neighboring properties, does that have to be maintained in this planning process? That's that. And then I still don't have an answer of what's crossing the highway.
Through chair, three questions. The first question, if it's used for something else that's not approved, chief building official has the authority and it's the responsibility to enforce the bylaw, to issue order to complies. So there's a tool mechanism for that for any ratepayer or any property. So that's question number one answer. Question number two, fire. The municipality of French River has their fire department. So that question would be directed to the fire chief in there because they're an expert regarding that. Question number three, in terms of traffic, I'll kindly kind of put like at the end of the day, it's not my responsibility or your responsibility, but it's the responsibility of MTO as professionals and experts to look at this site plan, which they did receive, to analyze it because they have their own analysis and their own model to determine it. Because most of the cases, there's traffic impact studies and traffic brief studies that are brought to my office over the last several years. I've done this. This is an example where I guess based on their data and the information they input into the model, they and their professional expertise said it was not warranted. It's not quantified on the type of vehicles. They just have a model. They're responsible for that highway. It's their expertise on that matter.
Randy?
We refer to Rock then about the fire separation. Being the fire chief, he could answer that question for us, please.
At this time, until there's a building permit issued, we're not activating until we know how the building and the site will look like. Then we'll make our recommendations once it's built.
Is there a regulation in place at fire? Generally, the building across the street, say then with lumber storage, we have 2 lumber yards in the community. We should be able to tell me what fire separation should be from dry stack lumber to houses next door, and how close then would Amy be able to tell us that these stacks are going to come up on the back of these houses is what I'm curious about.
There is, but it's about all figuring out once it's all built, we measure everything and then we allow them how much they could store. Offhand, no, I cannot.
Any questions from other members of council? Oh,
Just a comment, Randy, as far as traffic goes, there's already the lumber yard on the one side and the big huge garage on the other side. So those vehicles are already crossing that highway back and forth, right across. And this property is right across. So whether they cross on this side of the entrance or this side of the entrance, they're still crossing that road. So it's not going to impact the traffic that much because it's already crossing over to their main garage that is on that side of the highway that is right beside this property. So I don't know if you've driven out there and you go see, there's the big garage with all the trucks in that yard and the lumber yard on the other side. Well, this property is right beside and back, there's a house, and then there's that property. So they're still crossing right across.
No,
Like-
I get that.
So I don't see
Counselor.
how much more traffic.
No, I get that, Counselor, but if the product they're shipping isn't going to that garage, they're actually taking lumber product that they've milled on one side of the road and storing it on the other. It's not going on a truck. I'm assuming they're not going to load and strap a truck to MTO standards to cross the highway with it. It's probably going on a forklift. Either way, there's still more traffic. It's still a concern. Anyways, thank you. I already had the question answered.
thank you. Any other further questions from council? No, seeing none, then I declare this public hearing to be concluded. And now it's in order for council members to make a motion and for council to consider the application. So I need a mover and a seconder, Dave and Dean.
It is duly moved and seconded. Be it resolved that bylaw 2022-51 being a bylaw to amend zoning bylaw 2014-23 as amended, H&R Chartrand Ltd. be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Oppose? All right, it has passed. So since please be advised that there is a 20-day appeal period during which time any person or public body may, no later than 20 days after the day that the giving of written notice as required by section 3418 of the Planning Act is completed, appeal to the local planning appeal tribunal by filing with the clerk of the municipality a notice of appeal setting out the objections to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objections, accompanied by a fee prescribed under the local planning appeal tribunal. During this appeal period, no building permit may be issued or other work commence. Thank you. I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Renee and Dave, all those in favor? Thank you. Thank you very much.